Hi, Feni. Let's take a look at this set of essays. You've got three for us, I believe. Let's just double check. No, you've got two. Okay, let's see what you wrote. The line graph shows, it's not a line graph. I don't know why you said it's a line graph. It's actually a bar chart. So be careful, make sure that you are describing it appropriately, okay? So the bar chart shows the mean band scores of 4 test sections from students taking academic IELTS in 2012, split by gender. Okay, fine. According to the chart, it generally shows that females' mean scores were higher than males in all sections. Okay, in the listening and reading sections, the scores for both genders are exactly the same in reading and listening. Let's say reading and listening. Okay. Okay. You have to be careful here because I understood that their scores are at the same with each other. Does that make sense? I thought that you meant in the scores for both genders are exactly the same. So in other words, both men and women scored 6.1 in listening and both scored 5.8 in reading. That's how I understood it based on what you said. It's actually not that. You mean something else. Now, to be totally honest with you, I don't really see any value in talking about the men's and women's scores together here. This is a really small bar chart where you only have 8 pieces of information to describe, and so there's really no point in doing all of this grouping. If you group like this, you're going to have difficulty reaching the word count, the minimum. Now, I see that you surpassed it, you went to 190 words, but now I'm a little concerned that maybe you overanalyzed or maybe you did something that probably wasn't really entirely necessary. So, like I said, this first sentence was, excuse me, this first sentence was fine, but then I would definitely change this. In any case, let's go through the rest of this, and then I'll give you my suggestions for how I think you could have organized it differently. These figures were the highest scores recorded for each gender in 2012. Okay. The speaking part, however, for the speaking part, however, the mean scores were slightly lower with 5.9 for women and 5.8 for men, while for the writing part, both females and males held the lowest band score at 5.6 and 5.42. Where did you see 5.2? No, that's inaccurate. Look, it's 5.4 and 5.4 respectively. Okay, so be careful with this inaccuracy. In terms of gap scores between female and male, no, female and male candidates. It's acting like an adjective here, so you're not going to put an S on it. The least one was found in the speaking section by only 0.1%, while in the writing part, the gap doubled that, excuse me, that of speakings. By contrast, for listening and reading sections, for the listening and reading sections, the difference was 0.3, which was the largest gap between genders among other sections. In summary, it appears that fails gained, ED, higher scores in academic IELTS and males with the highest mean band score in the listening part without the verb was. All right. So this is kind of what I was a little worried about. I mean, you combined and you kind of edited in this paragraph. So here we're just talking about these score differences, which I can't say that I loved this. It kind of felt a little repetitive. I mean, we already knew these figures, so I didn't really see how this was particularly value added as a paragraph. So what could you have done here, all right? Also, you know what? There's another problem here. Look at this. You said that the highest mean band score was the listening part. Why did you say that when we know that it was also for reading? So your summary here is actually not entirely true because it was also reading. I mean, they scored identically the same scores. So I don't understand that. Okay, so let's look at this. Essentially, there were 2 ways you could have done this. You could have talked about the women's scores by themselves, okay, in one paragraph, and then in the second paragraph, talk about the men's scores, making relevant comparisons where necessary. Or you could have split it into one paragraph, but look at me, one paragraph about listening and reading, and then a separate paragraph about writing and speaking. Okay, so those were two different options you could have chosen. If you had done it the first way, no, actually, let's talk about it the second way. It's a little more challenging because the scores are the same for both these scores. But like I said, I mean, it could be done. It could be done. So that's one way you could have done it. If you had done it the other way, then, you know, it would have been a completely different essay here. So, you know, you could have talked about obviously that the highest score in the entire test was found by women in the listening section as well as the reading section. This was the only section that scored where the average score was above 6, specifically at 6.1 for both sections. Women scored 0.2 less in the speaking test, where the average score for women was only 5.9. The lowest of all 4 scores for women was the writing section at 5.6, which was a half a band lower than the highest scores of listening and reading. Okay, and so that's how you really kind of extend this, and that's one way you could have done it. So then let's look at something really interesting here. In a way, the men's scores are lower, but they're more consistent. So you could then say, in contrast, the scores for men were lower than women's and more consistent. Specifically, men scored 5.8 in 3 of the 4 test sections. And then you could, you know, put a colon and say listening, reading, and speaking. Okay? So while the difference between men and women in speaking was only 0.1, the difference between the genders in listening and reading was 0.3. Okay, so you could make kind of comparisons like that. And then you could say men also scored the lowest in the writing section at only 5.4, which was the lowest score of both genders in all sections of the test. Okay, so something like that. As you can see, I'm really extending it. And I think that would have been an easy way to do this. Okay, so let's see. Okay, that's kind of funny. I only saw your PS now. So I hope, it's funny, I think I answered your question before I actually even read it. So I hope that gives you some ideas, okay? All right, let's move into this because we spent quite a bit of time on your task 1. I want to look at your task 2. Spending money on art. We should spend money on other things than art. Let's see if you agree or disagree. Experts throughout both the developed and developing world have debated whether the government should spend significant amounts of money on art or other aspects. What does that mean, other aspects? Okay, that's really unclear. Or on other areas important to people, you could have said here, okay? While there are benefits to allocating much money on art, I personally believe there are other things which are more crucial for people's lives. Good. This essay will discuss both sides, using examples from Indonesia to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay, good. There is ample evidence that art, can improve the quality of people's lives. The central reason behind this is that art, such as sculpture and murals, usually plural, has positive impacts on the environment where they are made. Okay. For example, empirical research by careful with your typing, demonstrated that over 60% of high-density areas in Jakarta improved since the program of the local artists' intervention in creating thematic mural arts. What does that mean? Since the program of the local artist, that doesn't make sense. Let's try it again, okay? So, for example, empirical research by the Indonesian government demonstrated that over 60% of high-density areas in Jakarta improved since the program of local artists creating thematic murals in the given areas began, because a program has to do something. The program began. Okay, so I changed some of this expression around to make it clearer, and I hope that helps. Okay. Such an approach can create a better atmosphere and more lively environments for the community. Thus, it is clear that art has beneficial aspects for people's lives. Okay. Okay, so this paragraph talks about art and how it can improve our lives, but you know what happened here? You never really told us how. You simply just gave us a statistic that it improves our lives. Look what you said here. There's evidence that art can improve the quality of people's lives. Okay, great. Has positive impacts on the environment. Then, 60% of high-density areas improved. All right, so we've got improve, has positive impacts, improved, and then creates a better atmosphere and lively environment. So what are you really telling us? I feel like you're telling us, you keep telling us that it improves, but you haven't really told us how. Okay, so that for me is missing. It's missing a little bit of development, a little bit of depth that would have made this more meaningful. I feel like you're just scratching the surface, but you're not really talking about it. So you could have said how it has been statistically shown that viewing art reduces blood pressure, that people are found to have lower levels of stress and anxiety. Many pieces of art are talking pieces, which allow people to get together and communicate about the works of art they see. So this creates a sense of community. So these are all some things that you could have said about how it improves the quality in our lives, okay? As well as providing something aesthetically beautiful in some cases, which creates overall a sense of well-being. All right, so these are some ideas that you could have used here rather than just saying to us, it improves people's lives, it improves people's lives. Okay, let's move on. Although art can improve living conditions, the drawbacks to allocating a significant amount of money on art projects cannot be overstated. This is largely because there are other important aspects of people's lives which should be prioritized by the government, namely health and education, which are considered as primary needs for humans. For example, an extensive study by the Health Ministry in Indonesia showed that over 45% of the citizens could not afford health services and facilities due to the high costs. I don't like high rocketing. That doesn't make sense. We say skyrocketing, not high rocketing. This has caused them to suffer from serious illness, and therefore they cannot live their lives properly. In this sense, it is possible to state beyond doubt that more funds should be allocated by the government for more crucial aspects, including particularly health, rather than merely creating art objects. Okay, that's a very solid paragraph. Definitely very good. To conclude from the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that using money on art has positive impacts on people's lives. However, the disadvantages it can cause are undoubtedly larger concerning human primary needs. This awareness will increasingly grow in importance as access to public health and education continue to decrease. All right, now that's good. That's very good. So the second half of your essay was really strong. This part of the essay, I feel like you really didn't know how to develop it. Like you didn't have any ideas, so you just kind of tried to get through it. But that was kind of obvious. Okay, so I hope that thinking about it and hearing some ideas helps you maybe think about how you could develop this a little differently. All right, so nice job, especially in that second half of the essay. Try to apply some of these changes. And do we have any more essays from you? I don't believe we do, actually. I think this is your last set. You do have an opportunity to sign up for more essay corrections if you would like. There'll be a link in the email for you to do that. You're doing well, but I think there is still room for you to improve. I still think you can continue to, write better, and maybe we could overcome some of these issues you're having with the task ones, with developing some ideas. So think about it. Hopefully we'll see more writing from you. I look forward to working with you more. So wish you good luck. Let us know what you decide to do.